Hello, and welcome to this first lecture that I have for you from the EDSP 571 Research Paradigms in Education class. I'm Dr. Jennifer Madavi, and I will create these relatively short, I hope, videos to help you understand the things that you've been reading about in class. And this first one is just about research literacy and my approach to what we're doing this semester. I always like to start, because I'm a teacher, with objectives for whatever lessons I'm teaching. So here are four about what I hope that you're going to get out of this, that you'll be able to explain the reasons that, or some reasons that being research literate matter, some areas to watch for when you're being a critical reader of research, how to evaluate the balance between skepticism and criticism as you read research, and discuss how research literacy empowers you to conduct research of your own if that's what you want to do later on. So, my approach in this class is really to think what it is that most people who are working in schools or in education are doing. And at the master's level, most of you are going to be consumers of research. You're going to consult the research to make decisions about what you want to do, what practices to adopt, what professional development to organize, how to interact with children and their families. Most of you are really going to be looking at research that's been done by other researchers, evaluating that and using it. So my approach in this class is more about how do you consume or consult research than it is about how to conduct your own research. However, learning how to be a savvy a savvy consumer of research will help you if you ever want to do your own research, whether it's applied research that you are conducting research inside your own classroom or at your own school, but also if you go on to do additional work, if you write a thesis at the end of this program, the things that you'll be learning through this EDSP 571 class will help you with that as well. I really believe that being research literate is a superpower, that when you yourself know how to understand or decode what your school district or what your principal or what the state or the federal tells you is research, someone somewhere who is above you in the pecking order says to you, this is evidence-based practice, this is what we're going to do this year, this is how children learn, this is what families need. And sometimes it doesn't sit right in us, and we don't feel like, is that true? Is that what I know from my observation? How is that really what the research is saying? So what we'll be learning in this class, bit by bit over the rest of the semester, is how to take those studies apart to decide, is this strong research or is this weak research? Does it apply to the population of children that I work with, or to their families, or to their community? Um, all of that. We're really going to be very cautious in the way that we look at research, because we then will be able to make informed decisions about what practices to implement. Rather than just doing as we're told, like little robots, we are going to deepen our intellectual and professional development so that we can decide, this is a practice that I can really get behind. Here is the research that indicates that it's effective. Even though if the research says it's effective, maybe there's 3 or 4 things that you've identified that are areas of weakness in that practice. And so that you're going to need to supplement with some other ideas, other curricula, anything like that. But the first step toward being able to make those confident decisions of your own, to have agency as a teacher, as an administrator, as a member of the community working within the education space, you just need to know how to read what was given to you without being gullible. And that's what we're going to learn in this class. So if you were to keep this list, this is some beginning critical considerations, and we'll be talking about each of these things all through the semester, but these are just some ideas. Do you detect bias in this study? So as you're reading everything that the authors are saying about how they've conducted the research, why they've come to it, how they've even constructed the research, can you see how the authors have some ideology, a worldview? How does that mesh with your ideology and your worldview? how can we put those things about like ideology and worldview and bias aside, because we all have biases. Um, so how can we kind of parse out the feelings from the science? And because this is social science research, this is education, it's related to children and families and teachers and administrators and schools and communities. It can get really complicated to be thinking about what does this mean? It's not like studying to see whether a drug is effective for curing a particular disease, because drugs don't necessarily have ideology, although given the way that some research is conducted, there is ideology. Have you ever paid any attention to how few women are included in some of these medical studies? But sorry, that's me going off on a tangent. Um, you also want to be looking at how the research was conducted. Was it conducted rigorously? Sometimes rigor is hard to achieve in educational research because we can't exactly have a control group where a certain group of children isn't taught how to read, while another group of children is taught how to read using an evidence-based practice, because that's just not ethical. So we'll be talking about ways to figure out whether this is a rigorous research study or not. When you're reading the study, when you look at the evidence that they provide, that the authors are providing, can you see how that evidence points to the conclusions that the authors pose at the end of the article? So that's another thing we'll be looking at. And we'll be looking at validity of the paper. So we'll look at the internal validity. That means validity, by the way, means does the work do what the authors or originators said it was going to do? And so in research, we look at all kinds of validity, but we're going to start with internal and external. With internal validity, we look to see, did the authors conduct this research in a way that's consistent with what they said that they were doing? So if they said they were doing a research study on the ability to solve word problems in mathematics, are we sure that everything that they did was truly consistent with word problems in mathematics? Which is to say, and this is a very common problem, sometimes word problems in mathematics get affected by the children's level of reading ability. So children who aren't good readers sometimes have a hard time with word problems, right? Because they can't read it, so they can't do the math. But that's a violation of internal validity, because at that point we're really doing a study on reading ability, not word probability. So think about that one for a moment. Hit pause if you need to. And then external validity is, okay, so the study worked within its own little universe. How does that study apply outside of that universe? So was that study conducted in a school or community that has anything in relation to your school or community? I'm talking to you from Sonoma County. We're kind of suburban, kind of rural. Our ethnic groups are somewhat limited, in that we have a lot of white kids going to school in Sonoma County with a very large Latinx population, but not a lot of other categories beyond those two. uh, so that's what you're looking at. It's like, is this, are there applications from here, from this inside of this study? What does that mean for me in my world? So they did this study in Nashville, Tennessee, which is pretty urban, which is pretty diverse, which is in the South. Can we take what they learned in Nashville, Tennessee, and apply that in Santa Rosa, California, in Covelo, in Ukiah, in San Rafael? How do those places talk to each other? So those are things that we also want to be thinking about. And that's just a beginning. I'm telling you what. I think I would like you to go back and look at these objectives and see how you can do with them. I'm going to talk a little bit right now, because I realize I didn't, about the balance between skepticism and criticism. I am very skeptical of almost any research that comes before me. And that's not just educational research. Actually, educational research I'm usually better at, because I know what the good sources are, and I'm reading original source materials. But a lot of what we get in our society is coming to us from the radio. I listen to National Public Radio all of the time, and they will report sort of science journalism, social science journalism, and they'll tell you there was this study that was done that said this thing. And I am always really skeptical that it said the thing they said that it said. That was a lot of said. I am very skeptical that the journalists have properly presented to me the research as it was conducted, and it's really important. So there's that piece of just I'm not so sure. And then the critical piece is that piece of being a savvy consumer of research, that you understand how the research has been put together and what you should do with it, and you are empowered to critique it. You can look at their sample of children and say, well, they only included boys in that study, so I'm not so sure what that means for girls. Or they excluded every kid in the school who had any kind of disability. So, whatever it is that they found about how well the social emotional curriculum works, I can't apply that to children with disabilities because they were not a part of this study. And that's a criticism, that's a critique. That's different than being skeptical. So consider those objectives. Think about being a good consumer of research. And as you're listening to any radio stories, reading the newspaper, whatever, wherever the research is coming at us all of the time, I really want you to think about being skeptical and being critical. All right, that's it for right now.